I think these are the two models that I see most often. One is reporting up through finance and one is up through legal. I think when I tend to get involved is often after the fact when there's a government investigation, second guessing the investigation that has been done. And one of the issues that the government looks at is independence and whether the investigation was done in a manner that they consider independent. I don't know that one or the other function has a greater degree of independence. It really depends on the investigation. If it's a finance investigation, it's going to be hard for somebody who reports up through finance to be perceived as independent. But if the issue perhaps involves issues relating to the legal department, then it's going to be hard for that group to be perceived as independent. So it just depends. There are ways that companies categorize investigations in order to make decisions about, should it be a privileged investigation or not, allocation of resources. If it is something where you may want to report to the government, you want to make sure that's done quickly. And again, my perspective is always the government's going to be looking over my shoulder later saying this investigation is also under the microscope. And so you want to have a very clear plan for why you're doing it the way that you're doing it and why that is the best way to go about answering the questions that you need answered. Ordinarily, you talk to kind of more peripheral witnesses first and build up, and then work your way up the chain to see how high up in the organization knowledge went. You don't start out by interviewing the top person. I mean, they're just, I guess, rules of common sense, but they are different each time because it depends what questions you're trying to answer. You want to get as many of your facts together before you go to the critical players because you want to be able to evaluate the candor of the responses and to test the responses. And you're not going to be able to do that if you haven't done the preliminary legwork. Again, with the perspective of somebody who gets brought in later after the fact, the government always says the internal investigation took too long. And I mean, I think I've had that in every single case, and a lot of that is because people are trying to leverage off resources that are not really in the compliance function, and it's not their day job, and it's just a challenge to get them to make this a priority, even when it's a situation that involves a fair amount of risk for the company, and one can communicate that. I think the other challenge, again, when you're working with people outside the compliance area is how do you assess the sort of competence of a functional area that you don't usually work with, but on which you have to rely in a one-off investigation. And I think those are just difficult challenges.